History 13. The Cleopatra-Caesar Throne War. When Cleopatra VII ascended the throne of Egypt in 51 BCE, she was only 18 years old and forced to share power with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. The arrangement quickly broke down as rival factions in the royal court sought to control the kingdom through the boy king, pushing Cleopatra out of Alexandria. What had once been a dynastic squabble now threatened to plunge Egypt into civil war. At the same time, the rising power of Rome loomed over the eastern Mediterranean, making Egypt's crisis far more than a family dispute. It became a matter of international importance. By 48 BCE, Rome's own civil war spilled into Egypt. Pompey the Great, defeated at Pharsalus by Julius Caesar, fled across the sea to seek refuge in Egypt, only to be murdered at Pelusium on the orders of Ptolemy XIII's advisors. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria soon after, he was furious at the brutality shown to his rival. Using the will of the late Ptolemy XII as justification, Caesar declared himself the rightful arbiter of the Egyptian succession. Rome had now entered Egypt's throne dispute, and Cleopatra saw her chance to turn the crisis to her favor. Late in that same year, Cleopatra made her boldest move. Legend tells us she had herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters rolled inside a carpet or linen sack, so that she could meet the Roman general in secret. Whatever the exact details, her gamble succeeded. She secured Caesar's support against her brother, and their alliance was more than political. It quickly became personal. The bond between the Egyptian queen and the Roman dictator reshaped the power balance in Alexandria, but it also inflamed the opposition. Ptolemy XIII and his supporters would not yield so easily. The struggle escalated into the siege of Alexandria, with Caesar and Cleopatra besieged inside the palace quarter. The fighting raged not only in the streets but also across the harbor, where fleets clashed near the great Pharos lighthouse. Caesar, cut off from reinforcements, found himself relying on Egyptian allies still loyal to Cleopatra. The siege bound their fortunes tightly together. What began as dynastic rivalry now drew in Roman legions, naval battles, and urban warfare that scarred the city of Alexandria itself. In early 47 BCE, the tide finally turned. A relief force under Mithridates of Pergamum arrived to support Caesar, and together they faced Ptolemy XIII's forces in the decisive Battle of the Nile. The young king was defeated and, in the chaos of retreat, drowned in the river. Cleopatra was restored to the throne, now paired with her younger brother Ptolemy XIV as ceremonial co-ruler. Yet, in reality, she stood as the dominant power in Egypt, her survival and her crown secured by Caesar's victory. The queen's gamble had paid off. That same year, Cleopatra bore a son, Ptolemy XV, better known as Caesarion, Little Caesar. Though Rome never formally recognized him, the child symbolized a dynastic bond between Egypt's throne and the most powerful man in Rome. Cleopatra saw in Caesarion the promise of a legacy that could unite the fortunes of Egypt and Rome. But to many in the Roman world, the queen's influence on Caesar was troubling, sparking whispers that her ambitions stretched far beyond the Nile. In 46 BCE, Cleopatra herself traveled to Rome, where she stayed at Caesar's riverside villa. Caesar honored her in extraordinary fashion, At the dedication of the Temple of Venus Genetrix, a gilded statue resembling Cleopatra was said to have been displayed. Some sources believed it depicted the goddess Isis in her likeness, but the impression was unmistakable. The Queen of Egypt was being celebrated in the heart of Rome. For Caesar's enemies, this was scandalous. For Cleopatra, it was proof that her gamble had elevated her from a displaced monarch to a figure who stood beside Rome's most powerful leader. The alliance ended abruptly in 44 BCE. On the Ides of March, Julius Caesar was assassinated, leaving Cleopatra vulnerable in a city that now turned against her. She returned to Egypt soon after, and her younger co-ruler, Ptolemy XIV, died mysteriously, with ancient sources whispering of poison. Cleopatra declared Caesarion as her new co-ruler, but Caesar's will left his vast fortune and political legacy not to the boy, but to his great-nephew Octavian. The queen's gamble with Caesar had secured her throne, and left her with a son who bore his name. Yet Rome would recognize another heir. This decision set the stage for future wars of propaganda and power. And for Cleopatra, the story was far from over.